Salam, Namaste, Sat Sri Akal, Adab. I have a very interesting guest today. When you actually check into a hotel, let's call it the Marriott, the Accor, the Hiltons, the Hyatts, you would normally assume that they own the hotel. But in most cases, guess what? They don't. When you look at the hotel business, it's just not about the service. It's actually a very complex ecosystem. Investors, developers, brands, operators, all working together to bring a property to life. Today, we are breaking down this ecosystem with someone who has been at the heart of it for at least 2 decades. Jaideep Dang, he's the managing director for JLL Hotels and the Hospitality Group for India. We're going to discuss with him what it takes to build, to manage, to operate hotels in India. Why brands, developers, operators often have very different priorities, and whether the Indian hotel industry is going in the right direction. On one side, latest reports talk about 11 million international tourists into India at some stage. But the paradox of it is also most of them are Indian expatriates who have US passport, UK passports. They are also kind of coming back to see the industry. Why haven't we grown as much in terms of tourism?
We went to all the existing Indian powerhouses, hotel companies. Right? Do you see an Oberoi, a Taj, an ITC, a Lalit, a Park, or any Indian brand there? It's a pity. As JLL, it was a heartbreak because all these powerhouses, they don't agree with our dream.
Jaideep, absolute joy to have you with us. How are you doing today?
Thank you very much for having me here. It's a bright sunny day.
Yeah? And by the time we put this out there, another 1 million bright, sunny Indians and Bharatiyas who would be listening to you as well.
Wow. Well, that's an honor. It's a privilege. Thank you for having me and thank you for tuning in.
Jaideep, often this curiosity within me, and I often say this, India is a land of paradoxes. You see the excess, but you also see the other side. On one side, latest reports talk about 11 million international tourists into India at some stage. I think we're touching the pre-COVID levels right now of 2019. But the paradox of it is also most of them are Indian expatriates who have US passport, UK passports. They are also kind of coming back to see the industry. Why haven't we grown as much in terms of tourism, especially the vastness of this country? It's actually a continent masquerading as a country, right? And why haven't we been able to capitalize on our rich heritage? I think we start from there and then we kind of peel it down.
And are you asking me action within the country or
action both within the
overseas?
Country? At the end of the day, outsiders looking in, insiders looking out. For sure, Indians are traveling much more than they ever travel. But why isn't the world open to, let's say, kind of coming over here, vis-a-vis, let's say, they're going to Europe or perhaps they're going to Far East?
Please watch this episode on YouTube. The entire episode is also available on Spotify. We are working on other platforms as well. Give us your feedback. It's extremely important. Engage with us. Help me become a better podcaster. All I can say, I hope the questions that I ask is something you would have asked the guest. Thank you so much.
See, I think originally the problem was infrastructure because you need more airports, you need more ports of entries to get into the country when you're coming from overseas. And I'm just talking inward at the moment. So India, yes, you're right, a large country of a few cities. And the growth was very lopsided. Only those 6 or 7 cities were growing by way of, various businesses, originally manufacturing or agriculture. then came trading, then of course IT. I mean, it's a growth cycle. But ultimately, it was all about those big 6 or 7 cities, right? Delhi, Bombay, Hyderabad, Chennai, Pune, Calcutta. First, the 4 presidency towns. After that came in a little bit more around them, but that's it. And leisure, it was only Goa. Then came Rajasthan, right? Again, we started building the ecosystem without airports. Then came the airports, and that's why now you see that change. So therefore, now you see in the last 10 years the kind of growth that we've seen by way of connectivity, by way of roads and highways. Now, reaching from point A to point B is easier. The other interesting thing which is happening, and you see, we all know what the problems are, but I think let's talk about what the solutions could be and how we're all enabling those solutions. It's now, you see, there's a lot of comprehensive development around these cities which are happening and by way of infrastructure growth. If you need to put up new factories, if you need to put up new businesses, new real estate, and real estate would only come when people move, right? People move. You see what's happening around you in Gurgaon. It was never the same 20 years ago. But when Coca-Cola moved, when McKinsey moved and Pepsi moved and many other companies moved from downtown to Gurgaon, overall growth started happening. That's exactly what is happening in various other cities also and getting into the next layer of tier 2, tier 3.
But when I look at let's say the opposite side, you take the digital stack, for instance. I think since 2017-18, internet was there, largely there from 2010, broadband started. But 2017-18, after the triple stack happened, there was that leapfrog movement which happened within the industry, and that spawned the 4th generation of, I would say, internet and tech companies, right? Why can't we leapfrog here? And I'll tell you, there are a couple of aspects to the fact that Dubai just has one port of entry, and Dubai handles many more international tourists. So although the road infrastructure is there, right? Today, it's much better than perhaps we've ever been, and I think the next 20 years, perhaps we'll be, from an interconnectivity perspective, what US started building in the 60s. One major issue for Jaideep, who is an international tourist coming to India, there's no footpath. You go to Spain, right? You go to Singapore. You have boulevards. You can park your cab here or take the metro from here. And Delhi, let's say as a city, I think is pretty much like a Madrid in terms of culture, heritage, fantastic metro connectivity. But you just can't travel. You can't walk there, right? Do you think we need to, apart from the connectivity, if we provide the basic amenities of safety, security, and walkways, you may find more people coming in?
Well, it's a systematic failure, I would say, in some manner. We do not have urban planners, particularly to your point. I think what you're trying to do here by building the next crop who's skilled enough to take the next leap for a business, you need that in every line.
True.
Right? What you're trying to do with hospitality or retail or luxury or wherever you are touching this, you need to have that in planning, in architecture, in economics, in policy planning.
Correct.
You need all of that. It's very easy to blame the political will. And yes, our systems do not talk to each other. I think that's the easiest thing. The more difficult answers lie that what are we doing at that level. You'll be amazed to know the number of urban planners that graduate in this huge country, which is looking at infrastructure growth story. And at JLL, we are working very closely with the governments at many levels, central government, state governments, starting from Bihar going to Gujarat. So I'm saying one which is
Pretty
totally
much.
far
Isolated
away.
for the time being. Yeah.
And the other, which is like the role model or the example. And to talk about footpaths, you go to Ahmedabad, you see that.
I am absolutely with
Why?
you on that.
Because the city over the years has been owned by a few intellectuals who have worked closely with the politicians or the political powers or the governments.
And do you think also that there is that political will?
There is political
to
will.
take Gujarat, let's say,
As that
it was a
model.
lagging state 20
Yes.
years ago.
Look at
and
that.
is the, I think, the
Yes.
second most, GDP state today in
Yes,
India.
that's right.
Yeah?
And it's a remarkable difference. So it's what you and I can do to a place. It's what, if we own up that.
So essentially, if we have to kind of sum this up, there has to be the will, let's say right on top, the will of the people, the adjacencies, and the entire kind of city to uplift it collectively.
Yes.
And you're going to see the model.
Absolutely.
It exists in Gujarat, to your point. I think that Baroda, Surat, Jamnagar, of course Ahmedabad,
Right.
that belt is Surat.
Yes.
Have you been there lately?
Yes, absolutely.
It's a crazy place.
After
it's a lovely
plague.
place.
After plague.
After plague.
They
began
got
to
their
say,
act together.
The cleanest city in India, I think
And
now.
you know,
number
it
two.
was not just once.
Yeah.
They got their act together. They realized, listen, this is what we could do, and then let's maintain it.
Yeah.
The other problem is consistency.
So it's the same Indian who has a same civic sense. When he goes to a Surat, when he goes to a Chandigarh, when he goes to an Ahmedabad today, brilliant.
Delhi Metro, classic
Delhi Metro,
example.
Classic example.
So if you get onto a DTC bus,
Yeah.
I used to take the bus to my college, and I used to change 2 or 3 buses. And it was a crippling infrastructure at that
was,
time. But Sheila Dikshit at that time
Changed
and Mr. Vajpayee at that time, they worked together to make the city worth living. Right?
Yeah. So the point is, India, that Viksit Bharat 2047, and the path leading to that Viksit Bharat, we require these leapfrog movements.
You need them. You need them.
Every year.
Right.
Because what we are going to catch up is what people did in about 100 years in the next 20 years.
That's right. That's right.
Right. So the mindset also needs to be at 10x.
And also remember, this is a much more heavier plane that you need to take off.
True.
You need that runway.
True.
Right.
But China did that.
But China did that. We are now, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, we were a lighter plane.
True.
Our expectations were lighter. Today, the expectations are heavy, and they need instant results. So you need to take off with that kind of load.
True.
Quickly.
Yeah. If I just go to the second peel of it, right? We've discussed, and I think at some stage, like you are an ever optimist, I'm an ever optimist, but you led JLL's, the very first ecosystem of hotel hospitality, that was the Aerocity, right? You dealt with the governments, you dealt with the bureaucrats, you dealt with hotel companies, everybody, right, to create that. Take us through that kind of model, because that required pretty much, that was like a Shanghai model happening in Aerocity, right? That everyone owned their piece of, I would say, responsibility and accountability.
Right.
Take us through that.
Right. No, it's a very interesting example. And you guys would probably be using the Aerocity often. When we were given this assignment was circa 2007. And this was just before global financial crisis happened. And like today, we were ever optimistic, and we said, okay, this can be done. We realized that Delhi airport is probably one of the few airports in the world which is really in the center of an urban agglomeration.
True.
Generally, airports are somewhere out, and then the city starts moving there, right? And that's what happened to Bangalore and Hyderabad and many others.
Yeah.
But Delhi was like the heart.
True.
But nobody used to take a right when you get out of the airport to go to Gurgaon. People used to take left to get into Delhi, right? So first of all, that Gurgaon story had anyway started to happen, right? So people were taking a right. That means we were in the middle of left and right. So that's a marketing pitch or a sales pitch, that when we go to the market and say, hey, listen, this is what the plan is and it's going to be huge, why don't you invest? We went to all the existing Indian powerhouses, hotel companies, right? Do you see an Oberoi, a Taj, an ITC, a Lalit, a Park, or any Indian brand there, it's a pity, isn't it? Because none of them probably bought that pitch. They said, oh, no, listen. Maybe they were too busy running their own shows around it, right? And I meet all these people and they say, listen, probably we didn't see it enough. So as JLL, it was a heartbreak because when we would go back to GMR and to Delhi International Airport Limited, which was a joint venture between GMR and the government and the Airports Authority of India, we would go back with long and pale faces and say, "Ji, ye to nahi ho sakta." So they would say, why? Because, all these powerhouses, they don't agree with our dream. So, okay, let's go to the next ones. And then we went to the next year. We went to people who were more willing to take that risk, who were entrepreneurs. Today, you see there are all brands, and to your point, what you said, and you must know that the hotels that you live in, you go in and out, may or may not be the investors in that property. They're all managing other people's money, right? Like we're all managing other people's money. So we went to those investors who can then bring a Marriott or a Hyatt or a Hilton or a, various other brands. And the only exception was Mr. Patu Keswani with Lemon Tree, because he was building that story. So he said, listen, I'll take that punt. And he did. And what a success. Then Interglobe did it with their joint venture with Accor. So, there are people who would take that calculated risk because they wanted to make it work. And then there were people who were comfortable enough but not making it work.
Tell me something. You deal with Patu, you deal with JB on one side, right? Interglobe guys, Rahul Bhatias. Isn't there a story of the fact that they are the made in India, made for India brands who believe in that India story vis-a-vis, let's say, somebody who perhaps is all about maximizing profits? Is there a difference that you see in these entrepreneurs in terms of, I am building for India and I'm building for India for the next 100 years?
Yes, definitely. Hand on heart. You see, in boardrooms, these all investment decisions are yield driven. And yield is extremely important. Whatever said and done, emotions we keep aside. But when you go and meet them in the drawing rooms, you get that. Certainly you get that. And you see this exposure that anybody takes, there has to be some heart behind it.
Yeah.
It's not only mind.
Yeah, but in this case, it's that confluence of the heart and the mind.
It is, and it has to be that way. Only then you see the business works. Because you put that passion behind it. Ultimately, you need to tell a Marriott or an Accor or an IHG or a Hyatt, hey, listen, I know that you will do your best, but I want you to do a little bit more.
Correct.
How do you do that? You can only do this with your heart, because if you're passionate, you'll deliver.
Yeah. Give us a sense of how big is this Aerocity model and what is it really doing to hospitality?
Well, it's about 5,000 rooms, a little over 5,000 rooms now. People thought it's too much of stock coming at a single place. It's not going to work. But if you just put it in context, look at the number of rooms Delhi has, Gurgaon has, and Aerocity has, and look at the office stock around it. And by the way, Aerocity never had that office stock. Bharti is building now.
True.
So the hotels came first to service the
office stock.
The office stock of Gurgaon on the right, and the government and the judiciary and the administrative and the trade and the business of Delhi, right? Now, there is the next level of growth which is happening. We've recently signed, and I cannot name, but another luxury brand there with a 5-star brand, a brand which is missing from that piece.
Portfolio.
You guys can guess that name. But it's going to be another addition of about 500 rooms.
Beautiful.
Which was supposed to be the MGM, but couldn't happen for various investment reasons and lack of capital. And then there is the DB and Prestige's big show, which is coming, which is St. Regis and Marriott Marquis, another 940 rooms with about 200,000 square feet of office space, another 200,000 square feet of convention space. Then the last transaction that we did a couple of years ago, is Chalet's building the next big Taj, which is 420 odd rooms, right outside Terminal 3. And that's where, again, when GMR gave us this mandate and said, listen, we need to monetize this and get us an investor. And we went to the market and we realized that there are 2 or 3 people who are really credible who could do this. So we ran a bid. To your point, how do we manage those expectations of the government, get in that private participation, and honestly, we go to people whom we believe and we have the facts and the market stats behind us where we know that they can deliver. You see, what you don't want to do, your Delhi airport is your showpiece. Terminal 3 is your showpiece terminal. What you don't want to do is a half-built, empty building sitting, glaring at you forever. So that means you need to go to a guy or to a company who can deliver. And deliver a piece which you're proud of as an airport.
So over here, how does the dynamics work? GMR still owns the land?
No. The land has been monetized by way of a lease.
Got it.
Which is for 45 years. The incoming party, in this case, is Chalet Hotels Limited, which is a listed company. They bought the lease rights. They build the hotel.
Okay, got it.
And get Taj to manage it.
Got it. And in this case, does Airport Authority, because eventually all it was part of Airport Authority, are they still silent players in this and they get
revenue share? They get revenue share.
So the government gets its...
of course. There is capital behind it. There is money. There is motivation. So naturally, government needs to earn like they need to earn from the airport because ultimately it's their asset.
And do you believe we are also, and Prime Minister spoke about this entire entertainment economy, right? Obviously that huge convention center, the Bharat Mandapams, the Yashobhoomis. Do you think we've just seen the tip of the iceberg in this space?
100%. Guys, you're in a very, very good position and a good timing. I wish I was there when I was getting out of the college. Yes, we were looking at the stories even which were unfolding at that time. It wasn't a bad time either, but I think this is the best time because we see the way we are and we are in the middle of that movement.
Tectonic shift, let's just put it this way.
Because A, there is a lot of intent. B, there is a strong political will. And C, there is stability. Political stability is very important. Whatever that will is or whatever that optimism is, if you do not have enough strength in your house, you can't deliver, right? And especially brave decisions.
Yeah.
So all of that, the macros are all in place.
Yeah.
And the best thing is that you see now the world is also looking
The center of gravity is shifted.
It's shifted, right? So all of that is just coming together. You really need to, play out of your mind to lose it from here.
And I think also businesses, and I'm just talking about here the entire industry, take F&B, take hotels, take airlines. Now the next 10, 15 years are not about those incremental kind of organic growth conversations. I think it's just big, bold bets being taken, huge risks being taken, because the upside is 10x.
Yes.
I don't think so there will be a downside less than 3 or 4x from here. Because, as you rightly said, the macros are in favor, the center of gravity. More importantly, it's like, and when you just kind of go back in history, whether you take the Industrial Revolution of US to the fact that the development rapid pace which happened in China, if you have to look at it from an outside-in perspective, it's all about the collective energy and the will of the people.
And backed by serious intent.
And capital.
Yeah, you see, there is capital, you're right. But then capital always follows demand.
Correct.
In our space, in real estate, for all of you who will ultimately work in hotel companies or retail or luxury or aviation, ultimately you need to know who's coming as a guest to you, right? Who's my occupier? Who's my tenant? Who's the person I'm going to service? All those people are looking at India and these businesses because of yields, particularly I'll give you a data point, office space. Ultimately, business hotels are a clear beneficiary of the office occupier demand.
Absolutely.
Right? Last year, 2024, there was about 72 million square feet of office leasing happened. What was again, to give you a relativity, what does that mean to a scale? Pre-COVID, the highest number was little shy of 50 million, 48 million.
In a year.
In a year.
Got it. This is new infrastructure, not reclaimed
This is
infrastructure.
new leases.
New leases.
Not substitution,
reclaimed,
not replacement,
substitution.
no. Not renewals.
Got it.
This is new people coming, taking
Beautiful.
office stock, right? Now, which is beyond our expectations as well. We were sort of predicting about 60 million. And this was growing, right? So 2019 was the best year for us. And JLL holds a lion's share in this, right? In office leasing, that's one of our biggest businesses. And we look at it very carefully. And we look at all companies very carefully. We go to GCCs, you go to various corporates in the US, in Europe. You see Europe leasing activities down. America, people are still not going to work. Sandeep would have told you. It's a big problem. But in India, we all are going back to offices to work, not because we are compelled to. At JLL, we don't compel people.
I know, I'm quite aware.
But we've created infrastructure. We've created places like this. Your school is fantastic in terms of infrastructure. You want to come back to be in that public realm, right? So
the company culture, the office culture, the infrastructure culture, and that confluence.
You may say that, "Ji, traffic ka kya karenge? Bahar to sab phase hue hain," which is fine. It's not fine, but you need to get there.
But 10 hours, they are in a different space already.
10 hours, they're in a different space. And you see, we are all social people. At the end of the day, you need to feed from each other's energy, and that's how the whole thing works. So office leasing is huge in India. Therefore, which also is a compelling thing to tell that, there is demand and people are thinking and they are coming, which will again be a great data point for all hotels, for all airports, which means that there is more business travel, right? So which means there are more seats on the plane.
So when you look at the aviation, right, again, these are all 3 to 4 years ahead predictor of where the economy is heading, because the planes take that much time to build and deploy, right?
True.
And between both the giants right now, like about 800, 900 aircrafts. What it would do to the economy, just to put it in perspective, when you look at the Indian railways, Western, Central, metros, Bombay Metro, Delhi Metro, we move about 15 crore people a day. A day.
Wow.
The cumulative travel of airline is about 17 crores a year.
Wow.
See the delta.
Right.
In where India is and can grow in the next 20 years. So you touch anything, it has a 10x potential.
And you would know this number better, but I keep hearing that we are about 770 planes flying in the country at this moment.
Correct.
And there could be
South China who has 770 planes.
Yeah. And another 700 are being ordered, only between 2 or 3 airlines.
Only about 2. Yes.
So which means that we are talking of twice the growth.
And in the next 5 years.
In the next 5
years. So what it took 30 years to reach, you're reaching in the next 5 years.
Right.
And very interestingly, when I asked Sandeep also this kind of question, I wanted to know, because you guys do so much in China, right? And I said, Sandeep, you're looking at China today, let's say in 2025, where India perhaps is about 10, 15 years behind, let's say, for argument's sake. What happens when the GDP is at about 13,000 per capita? What happens when you are at 5,000? What happens at 7,500? At 7,500, it's a very different country.
It is.
Everybody benefits from it, right? So the marginalized benefit from it, because with every 1 trillion, I don't know whether you know this number, 100 million people move the next level.
Next level, that's right.
100 million, at whatever that case may be, right? Maybe a 2,500 may go to a 3,000, a 3,000 may go, but then the multiplier effect happens after 7,500. And that's where the real magic happens.
Right.
So a housekeeper may earn minimum wages today, and let's say that minimum wage, at least in Gurgaon now, is about 25 to 30,000, including security.
Right.
At $8,000 and $10,000, that's about $1 lakh.
Right.
Right? Of course, adjusted to inflation and everything, but they're better off.
Yes, yes.
And I think at that is the time, if we don't build today, for that time, we would have missed.
No, absolutely. So I think all of us have to think ahead, and it all starts from the ground level. The point is, it's easier for us to make strategies in the boardrooms. But if your people who are working for you, they're also thinking ahead. That's where you make the real difference, and that's what is really needed at this moment.
You've been at this, Jaideep, for the longest time, right? Someone who does this over and over again, and your brief stint with Oberoi is, when I say brief, it was a good stint, where the value of excellence got reinforced, I would say, right? If we break down the economics, and it stems from the fact that there are certain economics in India I don't understand. You understand it better because obviously you are more specialized in this. When I look at three aspects, if you can connect the dots for me, for our audiences, the land price is through the roof. Cost of capital in India is high. Developers are building at a higher cost. Margins are low, right? The willingness to pay and the willingness to sell argument is always there. Who is benefiting from this entire ecosystem? Because when you have a cost of capital about 12% adjusted for inflation, you need to have minimum 22-23% at least at a EBITDA level to even make some sense of the business. Actually, it needs to be about 40 or 50% so that interests are served, dividends are plowed back, you grow. Can you put a sense to the economics of hoteliering?
Yeah. No, it's an interesting question, and and that was the reason why in India the only way one could do a hotel is buy land which is cheaper than the rest, dig a hole, put a lot of steel, bricks and mortar, then embellish the building, and then get your first guests in, and then you start operating. That's what Oberoi did, that's what Taj did, that's what ITC did, and many others. Right? But then came the concept of mixed-use development, the concept of integrated living, and that's where other people who may not be direct part of that hoteliering business came into fold as experts or specialists and said, hey, listen, I've got the land. You don't need to worry about the land piece. Valuations, yes, we will sort of get there. But I've got the land. I also have the construction expertise. I don't know how to run. So I'll build it for you. So you run. So whom are you helping? You're helping the real estate developer. You're helping the operator. You're helping everybody between that as a value chain.
Got it.
Which is your construction vendors, which is your suppliers, which is your FF&E and people like us, right? Now you're helping everybody. So everyone's a beneficiary. To your question, how, and also you're helping the banks and the economy at large. But where are the returns? Or why would somebody build? Because the margins were very slender. So that's the reason why nobody was trading. Everyone was building. We found this gap a few years ago and said that, listen, guys, we are getting into the America model or the Europe model where things will trade. Why? Because someone's built it, someone wants to recycle the capital, and someone has built it but not built it right, so he needs a solution. So that's where your whole piece becomes or starts to become more institutionalized, where trading happens.
So largely it's like a horizontal integration which has happened.
Yes.
Earlier it was a very vertical. Everyone owned, built.
Now you see there are companies which are propco companies and their business is to buy and sell. There are opco companies who are businesses to run, right? So it's getting more and more specialized. Again, to answer your question, who are the beneficiaries? The beneficiaries remain all the same, which I counted, But now also there are beneficiaries as propco companies.
Right.
There are beneficiaries who are investors behind this propco companies. There are beneficiaries who are banks and private equity investors. And then there are companies which have decided to become into a REIT. So there are different structures which are coming into play to help solve that capital problem.
Yeah, and the shift has happened. The fact that now it's more, everything is horizontal. Everything is a marketplace
And
where
the
everybody participates.
Yes, and then comes the demand. Naturally, everything is driven by demand. So because the paying capacity has increased, because the room rates have increased, because the food and beverage rates have increased, therefore your margins have increased. So even if your cost of capital is high, your land costs are high, but still your yields are better than 10 years ago because you and I are paying more to that hotel.
Yeah.
Every money that you're spending on that room occupation is a straight follow through onto your GOP.
Tell me something. Again, little contradictory aspect of it. I did ask this question to the largest airline as well, right? We are predators when it comes to pricing. You see a supply-demand mismatch, and because of revenue management, it just goes through the roof, unheard of. I believe a couple of days ago, I'm not going to name the brand, but a room in a room in Gurgaon was going as much as about 50,000 rupees a night, and I don't know whether this is a good signaling value what you're kind of putting out there, either to a tourist or to an Indian consumer who wants to kind of travel, and then they defer their plans and maybe they don't come back into the city. Why is this? Is it what? Fear of missing? Is it greed? Or is it just, according to you, revenue management?
Whatever it is, not going to help anybody.
It's not going to help.
No. Goa is a classic example.
Goa is a
You see what
classic
happened 2 months ago. Nobody talks about the best monsoon that Goa ever had this 2024. Everyone's talking about the lull in Christmas and New Year that Goa experienced. Why? Because bad news travel faster.
Absolutely.
Right? So you don't want to
Over-index on your pricing as well.
on your pricing, and don't overprice and outmarket yourself.
Yeah.
You see, we are ultimately.
And is it because there are only 5 or 6 or 7 brands? Had there been, let's say 40, 50 brands, 10,000 rooms?
In Goa?
No, over here.
Well,
This
you see,
wouldn't have happened.
First of all, it's a clear indicator that there is space for more. So when a lot of people ask me this question, oh gee, there are so many hotels which are building, what will happen? Is going to be a bloodbath? And a lot of these listed companies, the retail investors ask me, I'm invited by most of these, the banks or mutual fund guys who basically are investing in these companies, and they ask this question. I say, listen, do you really compare? India has 250,000 rooms put together.
Yeah.
A Bangkok is 125,000 rooms.
Absolutely.
A Dubai is 140,000 rooms. One city alone versus the whole
And you
country.
take Koh Samui and they'll outpace you by 1:4.
Clearly.
Yeah.
Right? So therefore, there is definitely, it just needs to be distributed well. As I said early on, that we are all a story of 7 or 8 cities.
Correct.
That needs to change. And that is changing, thankfully.
And
Today,
7 or 8 brands. Even that needs to change.
changing.
Yeah.
So you see, last year, if there were 20,000 rooms signed, I would say 70% of them are in tier 2 and tier 3 cities. New signings across all brands. And this includes right from your lemon trees to your ferns to your sarovars going up to Oberoi.
But can I ask you this question? Yeah? Because you are on that side. The homegrown brands, built for India, built in India, I don't think so. Even their promoters think this extreme in terms of overpricing.
No, I don't think. You see, ultimately there are strategies, and we are all changing our shoes while running. The point is, after COVID, none of us had enough visibility. People used to ask us. It's ironic. I was asked this question by the best brands. I was asked this question by the best developers. And I was asked this question, people like you and all of you. How on earth do I know more than the person who's putting the money?
True.
How on earth do I know better than Blackstone, who's the largest investor of real estate in this country? Point is, none of us know enough. We all need to check with each other. Gee, Am I right?
Those checkpoints which are
checkpoints.
there. You know?
And then, you see, frankly, when I signed up for this job after coming back from Oberoi, I didn't know that this is the responsibility that I'm going to have. Because, see, ultimately everyone asks you, and you should ideally know a little bit more. And that invisibility in any such period is not good. So what we did, and I think what we did right, we were probably ahead of everyone else, because we were raising those right questions to the promoters, to the real estate financiers, to the banks, to the developers, and then we were kind of putting that all in our kitchen. So our ingredients were there. Then somebody would come to us and say, "Ji, ye solution chahiye." We knew exactly what need to be put and to be served. That helped to a large extent, and that's why today we can proudly say that we have that experience of trading, because we know where capital is moving.
True. And Jaideep, I think collectively, even as a nation, I'll just put one instance, the Coldplay concert, right? Happened in Bombay, happened in Ahmedabad. Forget, Book My Show crashed. I'm not talking there. When the dates were announced, the city hiked up the price even before the shows were booked by 10x.
True.
Right? Now, the concert is meant for the youth. Youth are kind of traveling, and if the concert tickets is, let's say, 30,000 rupees, the whole experience will cost you 2.5 lakhs. For crying out loud, who can afford something like this?
Yeah, that's not right.
And that's not right. Okay, aviation companies did the same thing, right? All the seats were kind of booked. Eventually, the tickets were being sold at a lesser price because cost of transportation was 10x. So people didn't go, or they drove.
Kunal, it takes me to a very interesting subject actually. It's about the Instagram way of life. We all need very quick validation, quick results, in and out. Whether it is you looking at your phone and what your friend is doing and what you're doing, or people in the boardrooms and in business houses where all of you will be ultimately, you'll have those Monday morning meetings and your managers will ask you, "Ji, kitna becha, kitne ka becha, kyun nahi aise bech rahe, what are you?" See, the problem is we all are now driven by instant gratification. Nobody is thinking long term. We see this problem in our employees as well. It is so unfortunate. So I think one of the big lessons that we should all learn from all of this is to stay tuned. Life is there day after tomorrow as well.
True.
Why are we living only for today? Aaj Coldplay hai, bech do. Kal phir sara shehar khali.
Absolutely.
You see, so you're not helping by way of revenue management. You're not helping anything. Aaj sare planes busy. All the airlines overpriced. Delhi, Goa, Bombay, Goa, Bangalore, Goa, Hyderabad, Goa, Chennai, Goa. The occupancies were 70%. From Christmas to New Year.
Yes.
So that means 30% seats on every plane flying were empty at the primest time. You can't afford to do that.
And you have taken a potential customer, all right? Now you have put the fear of Goa, and I would say Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan have become much more appealing to them, where Goa was very appealing to them.
So this is that, the thing is, हम long term सोच ही नहीं रहे हैं. And this starts right from here and goes up to the board.
Oh, yes. The same people across, developers, investors, brands, operators, are asking for an industry status. When you take an industry status, especially in a country like it's from communist to socialist to now capitalist, which we're kind of doing, it's about upliftment of the city, it's about upliftment of the people. But if you just want to maximize profit to your benefit, how will you ever get that industry?
No, you're right. It has to be more.
You take a Jamnagar, for instance. Have you been there?
Yeah, Jamnagar. What have they
and
done?
now with that forestry and whatever they have done, it's the most ideal place to live in.
Absolutely.
Or Jamshedpur in our 60s and the 70s. The way they kind of build that city. Surat with this whole diamond trading bourse.
Yes.
right? And the city is completely different.
Yes.
They build the ecosystem. That is industry status.
Yes.
How will we ever get that industry status?
Yes, that's
My question. How will we ever
How do we ever get? You see that maybe we are one of the biggest employers when it comes to employment, right from villages to we are appealing to every
Yeah,
strata.
but when there is a supply-demand mismatch, we are 20x as well.
Yeah.
Right? But the employer does not get that benefit.
Employer doesn't get that benefit.
Right? The ecosystem does not
Yeah,
get that
yeah.
benefit, right?
I think, you see, a lot needs to be done. Actually, I think...
And more than that, I think it's introspection also, right? Collectively. Where is it that we want to go, you know?
I think there is collective arguments that are constantly being made to the government. At least I'm privy to a few of them, and there are associations which are constantly doing it. But I guess, you see, when it comes to the scale, whether you compare it to an IT, to manufacturing, to MSME, you know, you're really, from a scale perspective, from an earning perspective, you're not big enough to showcase that. That is the problem. You see, when you are, I'll give you a classic example. When you're in a house, you're basically running the house, right? Your wife comes with a problem, or your spouse comes with a problem, then your children come with a problem, then the last guy in the value chain also comes with a problem. What is your common sense, or what is your first go-to thing is to solve the biggest problem. वो जो छोटी प्रॉब्लम है ना, वो कहते हैं चलो कल देख लेंगे. हमारे साथ वो हो रहा है. बिकॉज हम उतनी बड़ी प्रॉब्लम है नहीं, बिकॉज वी आर वर्किंग. यू सी, जब डेलीगेशंस आती हैं, जब G20 होता है तो काम चलता है. एंड वी आउट परफॉर्म आवरसेल्व्स. सो दे से देखो ये तो काम चल ही रहा है. बट ऐसा भी नहीं है कि दे आर नॉट लिसनिंग. वी आर वर्किंग सो मच विद द गवर्नमेंट, एंड आई कैन अश्योर यू देयर इज सो मच intent which is there when it comes to development. ये Aerocity ऐसे नहीं बन जाती.
Totally.
We are doing Yashobhoomi now, by the way.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
And Yashobhoomi is going to be the next big
hub
piece.
Yeah.
Right? उसके लिए भी intent चाहिए. रोड तो बन गई.
No,
Convention
for
center भी
the
बन गया.
uninitiated, can you just explain to them what is Yashobhoomi to our audiences?
So Yashobhoomi is going to be the biggest convention center. Like Pragati Maidan during our time, which is now Bharat Mandapam, famously known as that. So the government has put together again a wonderful infrastructure close to the airport. And if you see, most of you, if you get stuck while getting into Delhi or coming into Gurgaon from Delhi, because of the loops that they are creating and the underpasses that you're creating, basically it's for the betterment of the infrastructure. You will have seamless connectivity from the airport into this convention center, which is on the Dwarka Expressway, almost where you are, this road that takes you to the airport. It's one of the largest convention centers of the country, like the Geo, right? And there are going to be 21 plots around that, which will be offices, retail, hotels, serviced apartments. Call it the Select City Walk, if you guys have seen, or the BKC development in Mumbai that you've seen.
Oh, so this is like the BKC.
It's like the BKC.
Oh.
So Select City Walk or that precinct into 20 times. BKC probably into 2 times.
Got it.
Right? So it's a whole mixed use, huge development that's coming on the heels of
Delhi. Is it built on that live, work, learn, play, entertain?
Yes, because there's so much of residential around Dwarka Expressway and everything residential. And look at the master planning blunder that Dwarka did or DDA did many years ago. Everyone in Dwarka who lives in Dwarka actually wakes up in the morning, comes to Gurgaon to work, goes back and sleeps in Dwarka and does it again and again and again. So what now the government is doing is providing office infrastructure on the edge of Dwarka.
Got it.
So that all of them who are basically moving around and zipping through and clogging the roads of Delhi and Gurgaon, you'll have a little bit more space to work there. And then naturally when the offices come, the hotels come.
Correct.
Right? So JLL...
Schools come.
Schools come. So we are again engaged by the government to monetize
Correct.
and get investors who would ultimately build this whole piece.
No, when you say investors, again, let's demystify this. Brookfield, BlackRock, REIT funds, these are the investors?
Plus
private equity guys?
Private equity guys. So the investors spectrum would be private equity guys, the names that you just mentioned, driven by Blackstone, Brookfield, GIC, and a few others. And then you have Indian corporates which are listed.
Got it.
Call it the Interglobe, call it the K. Raheja Corp, call it GMR, etc., etc. Then you have hotel companies like IHCL, like Oberoi, like ITC, like SAMI, which are PropCo companies.
But essentially strong balance sheet companies.
Strong balance sheet companies, but which are particularly in this business.
Got
and
it.
then you have real estate developers.
Got it.
They're also equal participants into any development growth story. Right? And then there are infrastructure companies, and then there are company-owned, company-operated offices. For example, you could do this for your own captive use.
Got it.
Right? You want to build it for your own self, right? And like say the Tatas may like to do it, the Birlas may like to do it, right?
Yeah.
So these are the various stakeholders who will come and buy space here and build offices so that people like you and me can work.
So it's like a sub-district being made.
Yeah, call it like.
And are there Yashobhoomi models happening elsewhere as well in the country?
Yes, there are models happening elsewhere as well. Navi Mumbai is a classic example. Hyderabad again, close to the airport. That again, GMR is doing a huge development. Bangalore around the airport, there's a huge development. Yeah. So yes, there are models which are happening across India. I wish there are more, and I wish they are more sort of distributed. As I said, you can't have only growth in your own 10
Those
cities.
6 or 7. Now, if we move away from this particular kind of argument, right? If I have to ask you the future you of what problem do you think you will be solving in 2030? Assume you're in the same job.
Well, I think we should start thinking now about about cars on the roads, about parking spaces. The biggest problem, I'll tell you, and we see this. You know what smart people ask us? They all want to do big banqueting, huge weddings, great revenue. But then the smarter people ask us, how are we going to solve the problem of the parking? How much time the valet takes to get my car to the porch? That defines whether you're successful in banqueting or not. It's not the chandelier. It's not the height that everyone's currently thinking.
Interesting.
In a shopping mall, you know, the biggest anchor once upon a time was not the McDonald's or the Shopper Stop or the Zara.
Was the parking?
Used to be the toilets.
And you know, Arjun did this so beautifully in Select City.
He did it absolutely, and I'm proud to say that we were part of that journey.
I think he changed that game completely.
He changed that game, and look at the way he or they did the parking.
Yeah.
If you go to the parking of Select City Walk,
absolutely.
you feel, it's glamorous.
It's a glamorous experience.
It's a glamorous experience.
Absolutely right. Absolutely.
And you know, because of that, you go back. See, ultimately, merchandise, you will get it. Yeah. But it's convenience.
So it's also the fact that, purpose-driven entrepreneurs or companies.
So the question that I think what we will be solving, and ideally we should start thinking now, and we are thinking. It's not that we are not thinking. At least the developments that we are associated with, we are very careful on all these parameters. So we politely say no to work.
Correct.
With our folded hands, that listen, we can't do everything. If you're not aligned with our thought, with our vision, we don't want to be aligned with your development. See, tomorrow, the worst thing is in 2030, you call me back here again and say, "Wo aapne kara tha?" Oh shit.
So it's profit, maximum purpose.
And purpose. Purpose is extremely important at JLL. That's the heart of everything that we do.
Made for India brands, Taj, Oberoi's, Lemon Tree. If I'm missing on ITC, of course. Do we see a global footprint of these brands? Of course, we use, at some spaces there are there. There are also Indians. I know Rahul Bhatia's buying a lot of properties in Europe, right? But I'm talking about Indian brands featured in Europe, like Accor in India, right? Or the Marriotts in India, or in the US. Do you think we will have 3 or 4 brands who will have a global footprint?
Yes, definitely. They're all on the journey. At least all of them are thinking. Again, I must say proudly enough, we are engaged to get them properties and flags overseas.
Beautiful.
2030 or looking there, one of our biggest and my personal growth challenges is to how do we export Indian capital. See, again, just to give you a number, we've sold about 3,000 crores worth of assets at JLL, only hotels in the last 2 to 3 years post-COVID, which was never seen before, never ever. Now, we know that there are assets which are being sold. There is enough capital which is being spent internally because whatever is happening and whatever we talked about, right? Because of that. But the next big thing is, how do we export Indian capital to get properties in those world cities?
Either buy them off and
rebrand them.
Correct.
Or you have capital houses which are willing to bet on you.
But tell me something, Jaideep. Is this already happening? Is this silent revolution happening? And maybe the masses don't know about it? Maybe the Reliance are buying off assets. Maybe there are others who are buying off assets.
I can't say names, but you're there.
Yeah.
Definitely, they are buying assets.
Do we have to abduct you to get the name out of you?
Hey, no, don't do that. But yeah, because you see, there is enough and more that we are doing. We are selling something in the Maldives.
So it's happening out there, right? It's happening out there.
We've done something in the UK. I'm also at JLL now being part of the Global Hotels Desk, which is my clear responsibility that India is a source of capital, is a new source of capital, which is spending money overseas. Why are we doing it? Let's ask this clear question. Again, it's all driven by demand. You see, Indians are traveling. See, you would ask me this question, ये पहले क्यों नहीं हुआ? होता था. At Oberoi, I was responsible for growth. We had properties in Egypt, we had properties in Dubai, we had properties in Indonesia. We did one in Marrakesh at that time. So I guess, and similarly, Taj had a few flags. But you see, ultimately, money will follow the traveler in this space, clearly.
So right.
So right. If I am taking the plane to Spain,
absolutely,
and if that
has an Indian traveler,
and if that Airbus 380, which is flying from New Delhi to Barcelona via Dubai, then that means there is a clear signal that I need to be there.
Absolutely. And you know what? After you will be biryani by kilo will come there.
ये पूरा value chain है. ये सब चलेगा.
So right.
And similarly, और तो और फिर जब आपको indigestion हो जाएगा तो वो आपको वहाँ पे आपकी दवाई भी मिलेगी.
The Americans were traveling, hence McDonald's, Subway
सब कुछ आया, right? तो ये हो रहा है. That tide has turned. It is happening.
You see, this lens, Jaideep, is, I think, when we ask the questions even to the audience, they would really appreciate, because this is something personally I never thought of, and you've just kind of unpeeled a very different thought process, why it happens the way it happens. Beautiful.
Yeah, it's I mean, listen, ultimately ना मेरे को लगता है कि business common sense है.
Absolutely.
हम जो मर्जी करते रहें, जितना मर्जी complicate कर लो,
consumer को follow करो.
बस. Ultimately चिकन टिक्का बर्गर देना पड़ेगा तो देना पड़ेगा.
कंज्यूमर को फॉलो करो.
कंज्यूमर को फॉलो करो और अल्टीमेटली वही आपकी जो स्पेंडिंग हैबिट्स हैं वो आपकी कैपिटल को ड्राइव करेंगी इस बिजनेस में.
This entire ecosystem is about investing, consulting, operation, leading. Yet the industry, at least from a student perspective, कि ये सिर्फ operating environment है. How do we demystify this? I've been doing it for the last 8 years. Yeah.
करते रहना पड़ेगा.
India is listening to you. Tell them about hospitality. It's much more than what they think.
Yeah. I think you're right. You see, and it's not only about hospitality now. I'm not a hotelier by qualification.
Neither am I.
Great news. So, which gives you another reason that यार अगर हम जैसे लोग भी ये कर रहे हैं तो that means there's more to it, right? So, which means the thing is in any industry, you start with films, which we all sort of relate to. You start with aviation, where you all use hotels, everyone use manufacturing. जिसका भी नाम ले लो आप. होता क्या है, हम लोग सिर्फ डीप जाते हैं, वी कीप गोइंग डीप 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 डीप,
ब्रेथ नहीं है,
विड्थ में नहीं जाते हैं। वो विड्थ बड़ी ज़रूरी है इन एनी थिंग दैट यू डू। What Mr. Oberoi taught me, frankly, apart from many other facets of doing business, he taught me, he used to call, अगर हम इंग्लिश में बात करेंगे तो बोलेंगे कॉमन सेंस, और अगर वो किसी माली से बात कर रहे होंगे या किसी टैक्सी ड्राइवर से बात कर रहे होंगे तो बोलते थे कुदरती अकल। कुदरती अकल हम लगाना बंद कर देते हैं। वो सबसे इम्पोर्टेंट चीज़ है जो आपको लगान, और एज यू सेड ना कि क्या है, हम क्या नहीं कर पा रहे, हमें करना कंटिन्यूटी है, करते रहो।
और बहुत 30-40 साल करते
रहो। और ऐसा नहीं है कि मैं वही फिर वापस आ रहा हूँ इंस्टाग्राम पे, चीज़ें ओवरनाइट नहीं बदलती। आई टेल माई पीपल, माई टीममेट्स, यू नो, ऑल ऑफ यू सिटिंग हियर, द थिंग आई थिंक वन लेसन वी ऑल शुड लर्न, you all watch sports? Yes. Whether you watch tennis or you watch cricket or you watch football, whoever is your hero, a girl, a boy, whatever that player could be, ultimately उसके पीछे जितनी effort लगी है ना, उस shot के पीछे जितनी effort लगी है, वो effort overnight नहीं हो सकती, वो skill overnight develop कर ही नहीं सकते, वो backhand आपको continuously मारते रहना पड़ेगा। For one day people will say, अरे ये तो effortless था, वो effortless नहीं है, right? Similarly, in our whatever work you do, whether you're managing a hotel, you're managing an airline, you're managing maybe
restaurant or whatever,
restaurant or even a golgappa business है, वो बार-बार करना पड़ेगा ना, तभी जाके होगा।
Correct.
So I think that you can't take away, और वो कुछ नहीं बदलने वाला। Whatever हमारे temperaments बदल रहे हैं। I deal with a new set of people. When I was 20 years ago, when I left college, I was not like you. I must tell you, we were very different. बट अब जो लोग आ रहे हैं वो बड़े डिफरेंट है। मैं नहीं कह रहा कि वो सही है गलत है, डिफरेंट है। यू हैव टू डील विद देम, राइट? एंड द ओनली थिंग यू हैव टू कंटिन्यूसली टेल हिम, देखो, लुक एट रियल एस्टेट, एज यू सेड अर्लियर ऑन, कि हम 4 या 5 साल पहले सोच लेते हैं। क्यों? क्योंकि वो बिल्डिंग बनने में 4 या 5 साल लगते हैं, ठीक है? वो 4 या 5 साल सोचने के लिए डेटा भी चाहिए, गट फील भी चाहिए, तजुर्बा भी चाहिए, एक्सपीरियंस भी चाहिए। कैपिटल आएगी, मनी विल कम, बट मनी विल कम ऑन योर एक्सपीरियंस, ऑन योर डेटा, ऑन योर गट फील, राइट? उसके लिए कुछ तो करना पड़ेगा। यू कांट थिंक 5वें साल में जाके अरे भाई होटल तो बन गया, अब क्या करें?
And more importantly, you have to think ahead of the consumer. You need to take the consumer there.
You need to take the consumer there. बिल्कुल, absolutely.
है ना?
हाँ.
Sometimes consumer does not know.
No.
You have to take them and give that experience. Then it becomes normal for them.
बिल्कुल. तो वो that road you have to take, that car you have to drive, and ठीक है, एक्सीडेंट होंगे। अब गाड़ी सड़क पे उतारोगे तो एक्सीडेंट तो होंगे। So you will learn from those mistakes. You know. I saw recently, for example, we work a lot with SAMI in our business. SAMI is a property owning company, right? They own a maximum number of Marriotts and Holiday Inn Expresses in the country. हम लोग, we have sold hotels for SAMI. We have also bought hotel for SAMI at the same time. Same time. It's very interesting. It's very US side of working.
Got it.
Right? And they're phenomenal. They are so nimble. They change their shoes while running.
Beautiful.
Right? Because they say, यार ये कैपिटल तो मेरी है, इसको मैं बेस्ट कैसे यूटिलाइज कर सकता हूँ?
So what you're essentially saying is, Ashish, and of course with him, people are the fact that there is a playbook. If I stick to that playbook, I'm never going to be there, because I want to rewrite that playbook.
Preamble वही होना चाहिए।
Preamble वही है, पर लेकिन playbook change होती है।
To reach from point A to point B, रास्ते डिफरेंट होंगे और गलतियां होंगी, बट अल्टीमेटली करते रहना है।
But eventually, all successful entrepreneurs think the same.
Yeah, I mean, we work a lot with Kapil Chopra on postcards. जब शुरू किया था, and then how those lease lessons became management lessons became lease lessons. I'm saying on the property side.
Got it.
ये भी learning है.
Yeah.
Ultimately, you are responsible to your shareholding. We as JLL, see, we are a listed company on New York Stock Exchange. More than 50% of JLL is owned by mutual funds. I am responsible for my shareholders. Whatever I do. So that means I need to make it work.
Correct. For sure.
Right?
For sure.
And as I said, with a purpose.
Yes.
अगर वो purpose lose हो गया तो फिर करते रहो यार.
You know, so I have just a complementary aspect to what you just said. So दो तरह के shareholders हैं. मेरे एक, for me also, there is my shareholders,
Yes.
right? Who sits above me.
Yes.
But for me, the second most important are my customers, which are my students. So the purpose is here.
Yes.
And once I give the purpose here,
Yes.
then the value is given to them.
That's right. Absolutely.
If the purpose is lost here,
Yeah.
so everyone in this ecosystem becomes like equal part of that shareholder. Right?
और सक्सेस और फेलियर उसी के
और
बीच में.
कस्टमर आपको थप्पड़ देता है.
हाँ, पर उसी के बीच में है सब
और
कुछ.
सब उसी के बीच में.
बिल्कुल.
Jaideep, it's such a pleasure, and I'll tell you, yesterday, somebody was asking me, what do you think you're going to get out of this conversation, right? And I said, this is going to be an interesting conversation. And I had preempted that is of course, I had seen a couple of your videos and everything, but more importantly, the kindness, the gratitude that you carry, the aura that you kind of carry came out across within this podcast as well.
Thank you.
But to the audience, once again, I hope you had a lesson in terms of, as I said, it's not about hotels. It's about this entire ecosystem. And if you could probably take this as a master class for yourself. If there are any sections, you can always pause, repeat, go back. We're going to put short clips out for you as well. So I hope you liked the episode. It was an absolute joy and pleasure, Jaideep, to have you with us. Of course, may God bless you.
Thank you.
May you have much success. You're a nice man. You're a beautiful man. Not as good looking as I am, but nonetheless.
Well, and also I don't have the colorful jacket, which is fine. I need to buy one.
Thank you so much, everyone. God bless.
Thank you.
Please watch this episode on YouTube. The entire episode is also available on Spotify. We are working on other platforms as well. Give us your feedback. It's extremely important. Engage with us. Help me become a better podcaster. All I can say, I hope the questions that I ask is something you would have asked the guest. Thank you so much.